Welcome. I'm your host, Dustin, and Aaron, unfortunately, today isn't able to join us, but we have another episode of
Within the Barrens. Welcome to the end of the world.
our Within the Barrens segment, and this is a really special one. We got an early preview of Shudder's up-and-coming original Revealer, and with us today we have Luke Boyce, Tom Seeley, and Michael Morrissey, the creative crew of the movie that's going to be going on Shudder. It's June 23rd, correct, guys? I think it's the 23rd.
Correct.
So June 23rd. Yes. And these awesome folk, you guys pretty much all have a background, what it seems like in comics, which is awesome. I love comic books, and you definitely bring all the colors, storytelling, and just the creative world of the comic book world, I feel, to screen, which a lot of people don't really capture. And this movie, I feel, definitely does. Since we had an early screening of this, I really want you guys to trust us on this and know that when this drops, you need to see it because it rocks. This is such an awesome movie.
Thank you.
The colors on it, the writing on it, the acting, it's amazing. So the first question I have that I wanted to ask is, since there's a comic book tie-in to this, was the comic book already being written for this, or was the movie being written and you guys decided to do a comic book tie-in for it?
The comic book was way after the movie.
Way after?
Yeah, way after, because the movie shot 2 years ago. So.
Oh wow, I didn't realize it was that long ago. So that's awesome.
Well, because COVID, made everything difficult for Luke. So, obviously, Mike and I have a background in comics, so that was definitely something we knew would probably be something we wanted to do when we got there, but we actually didn't really start the comic till, when did we start the comic, Mike? Like a month ago, 2 months ago?
Yeah. And I think, the cool thing is what started with, Tim drew what was supposed to be first like a poster or promotional item or something like that.
Yep.
I think we all saw that and we were like, oh, because Tim writes as well as draws. I think it's been a while since he's done it regularly, and hopefully he gets back to it soon. But because he's awesome. But like he drew this cover that's just awesome. It's Shayna, or I'm sorry, I should say Sally and Angie looking awesome in the tunnel underground, and we were like, oh, this is a comic, and
yeah.
So we just kind of went with it, but we didn't get started, like Tim said, we didn't get started in earnest till really a few weeks ago.
We did bring up the comic on set. There was a few days where Michael was visiting the set, and I remember kind of just mentioning to him, I was like, hey, what do you think about if we were to do a comic? I mean, it's you and Tim. I mean, would it be crazy not to make a comic here? And Michael was immediately like, yes, we should absolutely do that. We texted, I think, Tim, or called Tim, and he was like, yes.
That's
right.
That was the initial idea. And then I think it just sort of like naturally kind of slowly became what it became. The question of like, okay, what does that include? Is it one story? Is it multiple stories? Is it one issue? Is it multiple issues? So it sort of just evolved from there. But yeah.
That's and awesome. In true comic form, we had 2 years of lead time and blew it all.
Oh man. Yeah, I love comic books. I had to stop collecting them because I was spending way too much money on them. But I've been trying to get back into them. I just actually did an interview with another fellow comic book artist, Jason Miller, who's over in the UK, an independent artist who's really, really cool. And I'm starting to get all his stuff. And now, once you guys put the cover of the first issue on, I was like, this is awesome. And that's when I reached out. And then that's when Michael messaged me. He was like, hey, dude. And I was like, yeah, if you guys want to come on and talk about this, let's do it. And you guys gave me the okay to watch this really awesome film, which I think, I don't know if any of you would agree, but with the storytelling of it, we know like good versus evil, sinner versus saint and everything. I really believe that this is pushing a lot of boundaries that films aren't really doing right now, with the whole dialogue of, the saint who's outside, like saying, "Oh, I'm gonna be like good and whatnot, and I'm gonna be able to move on," while the sinner is just like, "Nah, like I don't really care about any of that stuff. Like life's life." So that's what I think. I really think it is pushing some sort of boundary. So I wanted to know if you guys were thinking the same.
Yeah, abs. Yeah, Tim, go ahead.
I mean, I think when we worked on this 2 years ago, we could kind of see the rise. I mean, it was obviously there, but the sort of evangelical fervor that has been going on for a while, and how much that mirrored the '80s satanic panic and this some of these same people. But I do think in film there's not a lot of especially big budget movies. You don't do a lot of like overt critiques of religion, and especially not Christianity.
Right.
So so we kind of felt like, well, we can do it here because it's a little horror movie and we're frustrated, and we can also deal with something that we've all lived through, which was that satanic panic area. And Luke has a lot of experience with growing up with evangelical faith, and for Mike and I think it's just we're just really annoyed by it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just kind of annoyed, like, and I'm sure Luke can speak to this more eloquently and in more depth, but like, I think the things that we were looking at as well was just like our, a lot of movies about judgment and just our very judgmental culture, and the way that it's, the idea of moralism gets tackled in art, whether it be comics or film. It's just a lot of like finger wagging and being like, "Ooh, these things are bad, and you're wrong if you're bad." It's all this stuff, and it's very low hanging fruit. And we like to kind of like, I know Tim and I in our work together and individually, like, life is complicated and messy, and even moralism is complicated and messy, and doing the right thing. And these are difficult things. And we wanted to kind of present the idea that like judging, especially judging people from afar and not knowing anything about them, is not really a good thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
And like, these things that we're talking about are complex. They're deeper than 140 character count or whatever shit you get on Twitter. And we kind of want to show that messiness of what moralism and judgment and acceptance of people really looks like.
Yeah. I mean, like Tim said, I grew up very evangelical my whole life. Small town, central Illinois. We were very active in our non-denominational church, which was very rapture based. And so a lot of this was very familiar to me. I was directly impacted by the satanic panic of the '80s. And so, since then, I'm no longer religious. I've kind of done sort of a 180 on it, but most of my family still is, and I deal with that on a daily basis. And it's interesting. I think there's a world where social media is training us to ignore nuance and to ignore human complexity. It's training us to put people in very small boxes, and it's very easy when what we're constantly doing on social media is moralizing. That requires you to put yourself in a higher place than someone else. And I think, I'm not saying that there's not situations, there's political situations, especially we're dealing with now, where you have to take a stand. And I think that that's important. I also think it's important that, I think the biggest thing in this world, there's a great This American Life story. I can't remember the exact title of it, but they talk about how the most important thing you can do as a human is have experiences with other humans so that you can understand other humans, and especially humans who have not all the exact same ideas as you, the exact same thoughts. And I think that's what Revealer is about. Revealer is about two people who have no choice but to experience something bad together. They're two people who are on the opposite spectrums of ideology, and they discover through the process what they have in common. They discover their humanity, which is the same, when they're put in the same process. And I don't see a lot of content like that out there.
Me either.
And so yeah, I think you're right. I think that's what drew me especially to the script that Tim and Mike wrote.
Yeah, and that's what I really like about it too, is just because it feels fresh. It doesn't feel like it's something that's already been done. I mean, there's probably been movies out there that have done stuff, not like the exact thing that's going on in here, but like good versus evil in the way that it's being told here. But it does feel really refreshing And I have to say that the lighting design in this film is so good. So was that I know you guys said that the comic was like kind of already planned like a couple months ago, but was the lighting design like all colorful like that because you guys wanted to do something that was like a little bit like a comic book, but without really, planning on actually doing one now that you guys are?
No, I think it's probably just our collective uh interests, and like me, Mike, and Tim all sort of like the same things.
That's a
We're
good thing.
all children of the 80s. So, and I think that there's it's interesting that ever since digital coloring in film became a thing back with I think the first film was um Oh Brother Where Art Thou, was like the first film. That film kind of has this very sepia tone, right? And
Yep.
then you kind of get into the Matrix world of the the early 2000s, which is all very green or very blue,
Gray. Yeah.
right? And then that's evolved into just mostly gray slabs of stuff. I mean, you could look at something like the most recent Harry Potter movie, the Dumbledore movie, and it's just shades of gray. And I think like it's I don't know, color's pretty cool. In
Yeah,
my
it
opinion.
is.
I think
It
it's
really
pretty
is.
great. So it's like, a little bit of that was just sort of fighting against this sort of modern tendency to sort of, I think what it is that so the digital revolution is still sort of, it's almost like we're working through how we want digital to look like film, but digital doesn't take light in the way film does. And so a lot of people are still trying to figure out what are the limitations of that. If we get too colorful, does it look too much like video? So there's been a trend over the past 10 years essentially to mute everything so that it feels more cinematic. And that's, I think, just us trying to understand the limitations of the technology, because we're still sort of early in digital days. So a lot of this is just sort of saying, kind of pushing against that and saying, no, I think other people are doing this. I think recent films are starting to show this as well. We can include color, like variations of color. And that's, we had the benefit and revealer of the fact that this is number one, the 80s.
Yeah.
So, you want to throw in some of that color, and then we were like, well, we're in a peep show booth. So the great thing about these peep show booths is that they're small stages, and we can light them like stages. We can give them theatrical lighting, because that's what they are. They're tiny little theaters behind a glass, barrier. So that was like, we got to play a little bit more in that sandbox. And I remember talking to Robert Stern, my cinematographer, and we had ideas of just like splashing every color under the rainbow in this thing. We slowly kind of pulled back on that and kind of really focused on this sort of bisexual lighting, as they call it, with sort of the pinks and the blues and that. And it just really felt really strong. But we definitely wanted to play with color. I just think it's more interesting. It's more fun to watch.
Exactly, and the color palette they're using is actually my favorite color palette too. So I guess it's another reason why I really like this film, because I always thought that blues, purples, and the reds that are being used in here always blended so well, and films don't use it enough.
They don't.
You've got a little peep show going on behind you.
Yeah,
right now.
yeah. I tried to match it as best as I can just for you guys.
Yeah.
So I guess this is a question for Tim and Michael. Since you guys, are in a background of comics and write storylines and draw and all that stuff. So when you were doing the screenwriting for this, were you doing it more in like a comic book styled way, or were you breaking out and trying to do it more in a cinematic way? I've always found that really intriguing when like comic book artists and writers go to do film, and how they approach that. Like if they do like a full storyboard, like as it's a comic, or if it's or if you break out and do it more like a cinematic writer.
We had very little time. So that's one of the things that I can see a world where Tim does do storyboards, and I think he'd be marvelous at it. I have no doubt in my mind. Unfortunately.
Yeah. I teach it at Columbia.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Oh yeah, you are pretty good. See?
There you go.
But unfortunately, with time limitations, no, we didn't get a chance to do that kind of depth of stuff. But like, I think for Tim and and Tim obviously can say, his take on this as well. But like, I really think that Tim and I both love movies, and personally, I went to film school. I didn't, like many colleges I went to, I didn't finish, but I went, and I made short films, and this is what I wanted to do. And one thing led to another, and I did it until now. But like the thing is that like I do have that background in cinema, and I love movies. Tim loves movies. I think all of us, to combine, watch more movies than anybody on earth. And when we wanted to take this approach, like I didn't think we wanted to make, like, there's comic book elements to it, and that's undeniable. And I don't know how we would ever make a movie that didn't have that, and I'm proud of that. But I didn't think we wanted to take that like pure, like let's put a comic book through this kind of grinder and get a movie to come out on the other end. I think we had our sights firmly set on making it a cinematic experience, and that extends to Luke as well. Like we were just talking about with the lighting and many other clever and creative and brilliant things that he and Rob did together. But that was our goal, and that was our goal. And I think this, is a testament also to like what we were talking about earlier. Like we want to do stuff that we don't see, like we have this, I don't know, maybe once in a lifetime opportunity. We all want to do it again. Will we? I don't know. I can't see that future. I want to, but like, if we're going to do it just once, it's like, I think we want to take as big of a swing as we could and make a big movie and do things that we didn't see being done, and break some unwritten rules that cinema is kind of like locked in, like gray, and like it's all gonna be realism, and like it's all got to be this type of morality and this type of message, and we're kind of saying no to that, and we're going to use the tools of cinema that we love, and we're going to do something different. And I think actually, I know I'm really proud of that. I'm really glad that that's the route that we took.
Awesome.
Amen.
And I think our process on it too was just because Mike and I worked together on it, so it was the default was, well, let's write this kind of how we would write a comic, but we were using Final Draft, and we were using, we did it like you're supposed to.
Right.
But I do think if there's anything I kind of learned about it was when we talked to the producers afterwards, they were kind of shocked at like, how quickly we were able to do it, and how efficiently we were able to do it, and how we didn't really argue when we were working on it, or how we didn't fight against notes. And we're like, yeah, because we're comic book writers. So, for us, it's you get a script done, it's 22 pages a week, no matter what. And, so there's a training that goes with that, I think really helped us to do this in a limited amount of time with limited resources, because we're just really, really used to that.
And I guess that kind of goes into another thing I wanted to ask is, what was your budget for this film? You guys seem like you, with the low amount of resources, seems like you guys probably had a lower budget on this.
Oh yeah, very low. I don't know if I'm at liberty to say what the exact budget is. I can tell you that it's definitely under, well under 500,000.
Wow, good on you guys for doing this beautifully written and directed film.
Oh, thank you.
I've watched it with the link that you guys sent me. I think I watched it about 3 times, and each time
Wow,
I'm finding new things that I'm loving. Just how everything kind of just like falls into place, and the pacing of it also is really good. It doesn't like drag on at all. It's always pushing itself forward. And once you get the 2 characters together, and things start like really amping up, and then you get like all like the quote unquote holy things coming down, trying to smite them and whatnot. It's really 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 fun, and
oh man,
I really do appreciate what you guys did. And I was laughing a lot at this, so I'm very curious as to whose idea it was to put this in. But the Chud
Tim.
reference.
Tim. I knew it.
I was like, Chud? Oh, yes. People are going to like this film.
Well, part of the thing we were working on was that because it's set in 1987, I was trying to think I was 10 in 1987. And that was a big year for me that summer specifically, because I had my appendix taken out. But it was also the summer. So that particular summer, I came with my family. We were supposed to come back and see the Masters of the Universe movie that came out that summer in the theater. I got sick. I had to go to the hospital. I had a week, and I was like, just going out of my mind that people were seeing the He-Man movie. And then because I was like, what if I can't get tickets? And that, of course, it was a huge bomb, and no one went to see it. But I recall, like, the other thing I remember about that was that while I was in the hospital, my dad would get tapes of stuff that his friends had gotten for him, taped off HBO. So it would always be like a comedy special, and then Chud, and then like it was like stuff that they played constantly at HBO. So we were referencing stuff that like felt very 1987 to us, and
like Louis Anderson, Chud, and used cars on one VHS.
Yeah, or it was like Eddie Murphy and like Rodney Dangerfield, and then always like a bunch of horror movies that kind of I think the stuff might have been on those tapes. I just remember like
the stuff is great.
Kind of movie. But it was just like a very specific. That's why I said in 1987 because I had so many memories of that summer, not for the same reasons that are shown in the movie when the world ends, but it seemed like the end of the world to me at that moment because I was not going to see Dolph Lundgren beat up Frank Langella in the theater, but I did, and no one was there except for me and my family.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, as soon as I heard that, I was laughing so hard. I was like, "This is great!" Like they know exactly what they're doing, and the music too throughout this whole film. Like Alex does a really really good job. I mean, I loved all he did on like Scare Package as well. So I'm very interested to know if you guys are gonna plan on doing like a soundtrack release of any sort for this, because I'll buy the hell out of that.
Yeah, so we've got a couple. So I can't say anything. I don't know. Well, I don't know what I can say. There will be.
If it's risky, don't worry about it.
No. Here's what I'll say. There will be a soundtrack. We're actually planning a couple different things. So there will be hopefully soon before the release. We'll have a special announcement in terms of the music, and then there will also be I believe there will be a vinyl soundtrack.
Oh my God! Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge horror vinyl collector myself, so it's like,
same.
Gotta have this. I get, it's my movie. I get to say, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, Alex was, Alex was amazing to work with. Just did a phenomenal job. It was so much fun working with them. And then, yeah, we had some really cool situations in the film where we got to use music from the band Gunship, which we're all really big fans of. Tim and I are huge mega fans. And we reached out to their management early on, like literally before we started shooting, to talk about the possibility of working with them for the film. And they were super into it right away. So that was a huge deal for us. And then we even have original music in the film. And it was fun because, with a lot of these 80s movies, there's always, like, especially if you look, right now is perfect example with Stranger Things and the Kate Bush song, right? Like, so there's always these, everyone expects needle drops in 80s movies. Like, oh, this is the 80s, so we have to put every 80s song that in this to make it's the 80s. I didn't really want to do that, partly because there's no way we would have the money to do that. I mean, those things cost a pretty penny. But then on top of that, I thought, with Gunship, I'm a huge synthwave fan. So a lot of that sort of sensibility of the blue and the pink and stuff comes from sort of that sort of niche genre. So I really wanted to sort of pay homage to that, just in the sense of like, I love that we live in this world where a lot of people are making content that just sort of evokes the 80s. It's not exactly directly that, but like synthwave being this genre of film that it's not actually inspired by music of the 80s. It's actually inspired by movies, specifically movies and video games of the 80s. And so I thought it would be a really cool thing to make a kind of synthwave horror that sort of like followed that same idea, sort of evokes the time period, but it's not exactly of that time period.
Yeah. And it's great. I love everything that plays in it, even just like the nuance in the background that's going on. Yeah. Everything is so well done in this film, and I want to see more stuff from you guys. So I really, really hope that after the comic books are done and everything, that you're like, hey, let's go do another badass film.
Oh, we have every intention. Trust me.
And another question I have for the comics, if you guys can say, is it going to be a continuation of the film, or is it going to be more stuff like before, like what happens before this film?
Yeah, it's kind of all of those things, right? It's like stories we couldn't tell, basically, right? Because obviously somewhat of a limited budget, so um, we split up the stories. It's like an anthology, which allows us to each do different sort of things in different styles, which was a big thing for us, obviously, too. Just some of them more slice of life, some of them are more horror, some of them are. One of them is like a big cosmic superhero thing.
Awesome.
So it allows us to do all kinds of stuff.
I'm excited for that a lot. When is the comic coming out? It's in the summer, right?
August, yeah.
August?
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
Awesome. So I'm definitely going to be keeping my eye out on that. And hopefully everybody listening will be keeping an eye out for that, because even the cover, like I have it up on screen right now. And just looking at it, I want it right now because it looks so badass. It's awesome.
Nice.
Original art for it the other day. So
Oh, that is so sick.
yeah, it's absolutely obsessed with it. So
You guys are doing wonders over here, really. Another thing that I'm kind of like getting off of this, I don't know if it was like an inspiration or maybe you guys didn't even think of it, but I get a little bit of like Night of the Comic vibes from this.
oh, nice.
And I like that a lot. So I didn't know if you guys had like inspiration on that, or if you didn't even realize that was even a part of this film.
What was the inspiration?
Night of the Comet, the movie Night of the Comet. I get
Oh, Night
like
of the Comet.
Yeah, Night of the Comet. I get a little bit of a vibe from that film in this one. So I didn't know if any of you had an inspiration of that going into this film.
I love that fucking movie, but we didn't think of that one. I don't think
Yeah, it's a great movie.
Yeah,
I
great.
I think that, yeah, probably subconsciously there's that. I think we definitely, we were very much inspired by, and especially me, Tim, and Mike have all talked in different points about, our love of especially 80s, early 90s horror comedy, especially, just sort of like the risks that are taken, especially mid to late 80s with horror, sort of the sense of being earnest, not necessarily taking everything so seriously, but also still being very earnest about everything. So I think there's quite a lot of different influences that I think that draw into the film. Like Tim said, I don't know if Night of the Comet was one that I had specifically, but thinking back on it, I'd be like, oh hell yeah, I love that movie too. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome, because that was like one of the things that especially when she's walking to like the phone booth, just how everything looked outside, it gave me such a vibe of that. And even like the costume design is really on point too, so props to everybody was working in that department, because they definitely nailed it. And also
that was oh, go ahead, sorry.
Nope, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, I was gonna shout out to Hallie Sharp, who is our costume designer. And actually, honestly, shout out to everybody on the crew, because so we basically did this movie right sort of in the middle of quarantine, and nobody had worked, and we didn't know how to make a COVID production. There was no set standards yet. So this is 2020. And so we basically shrunk our crew down. And we had about 20 people on the crew. That was it. So everybody had to do multiple jobs. So Hallie, for instance, she was our costume designer and our script supervisor. And like other people are like, doing multiple jobs at once. So the whole crew, we basically quarantined together. Nobody left. We were either in a hotel or we were on set. And so this whole entire movie was made on one single set in an old warehouse. So that's it. Like we were just a night and day. I didn't see my family for a month. I was quarantined with everybody else. We tested 3 times a week, multiple times. It was pretty strict. So, honestly, just everyone did a phenomenal job under these circumstances. But everyone was just, I think it built this really strong family environment as well. Like everyone was really passionate about the project. So yeah, so Hallie did an amazing job. Everyone else did an amazing job as well. Everyone worked really hard under very difficult circumstances.
That's awesome. And also, like Kato and Shayna, they did
Yes.
really, really good jobs too. So how was it like working with them? Because they are phenomenal on screen. I need to see more of their works. I went to look on the IMDb, and it didn't look like they have a lot underneath their belt. So I really hope this gets them some more jobs because they're really, really good.
So this is Shayna's first feature, which is amazing to me. She's so good. Since then, she will be in Scare Package 2.
Oh, yes.
This was Kato's second feature, but since then she will be in Black Mold, which is produced and made by quite a lot of the same people that made this film.
Awesome.
Directed by John Pata, who also was our post supervisor. So, yeah, we had an amazing casting director, Sarah Casey, who got us a lot of audition tapes of people who were desperate to work. It was pretty surprising. But both Shayna and Kato, they were immediates for me. We saw their tapes, and there's just something special about them. And we actually didn't know until they got on set, and that I actually, for the first time, got to talk to them, that they actually knew each other. They're both from the Chicago theater scene.
Wow.
Yeah, Shayna's been in a lot of productions. Kato's been in a lot of productions. Kato also does burlesque regularly, burlesque and circus burlesque. So, and we can talk about that later. She did the whole dance sequence in there and choreographed that. But they had an amazing chemistry immediately, and we're just the most fun people in the world to work with. I can't wait till we're able to show some of the behind the scenes stuff, because I have so much video of them goofing around and being just insanely delightful.
No, that's awesome. They definitely did a great job. So let them know that I said that they were really good. And I really do want to see them in more films.
Yeah, we're doing we're recording their commentary track tomorrow, in fact.
Oh, that's awesome. Awesome.
So
even like the creature design too, and like all the slugs and everything were really, really cool. So obviously there was some CGI that was used in here, but was there a lot of practical stuff being used as well with the slugs? Like, did you have like one or two that were like on set, or were they all just digitally in there?
No, the original intention was for it to be entirely practical.
Oh, really?
We didn't know, with our budget being so low, we didn't know that we would have the benefit of CG. And we were kind of like, well, it's an 80s film. We're going to try to make it as much like an 80s film as we can and have all these practical effects. The problem with that was that we because we had such a small crew, I mean, we really didn't have like a dedicated effects crew. We did like we had Brian Zurich was our main effects guy, who designed the creature, designed the snakes and everything like that. And he had a helper for a little bit, but for the most part, he was by himself. So there's there's the one scene where the snake is crawling on Sally. That was puppeteered by 3 people. There was like Brian was one, Sarah, our art director, was another. Get a couple more people, just people kind of like doing stuff. So what we found was that after we got it into editing, we had a situation where we had a couple people come on board that really kind of amazingly offered this CG help, digital help. And we kind of had this great, amazing opportunity to sort of augment some of the stuff that wasn't quite working as well as we wanted it to, just because we had a very short amount of time. We shot this in 13 days.
That's phenomenal.
That's not very much time to do, especially if you're doing gags and doing effects gags. I mean, effects gags basically take a whole day, more or less. So we intended to do as much practical as we can. So it's a mix of both. We definitely had like 3 or 4 practical snakes that on set and stuff like that. But then it was augmented a little bit later.
Awesome. Who designed everything before it was obviously made? Was it Tim or Michael, or was it your special effects crew?
It was the stuff that you see on screen was Brian Zurich was the one who designed it. So he gets all the credit on that. I mean, we did sort of, we kind of bounced around some ideas in terms of the creatures and stuff. I remember Tim kind of drew something. I kind of drew something initially, but eventually we just didn't have enough time. I didn't even really see the full thing until we got onto set in pre-production. So yeah, a lot of this stuff was pretty quick. I mean, I don't know if they mentioned, but Tim and Mike wrote it in about 8 days. The whole process, we started talking about doing this in May, and we were shooting by the end of July. So
That is
pretty rapid
really,
process.
really, really phenomenal for the amount of time that you guys had. And I imagine Tim and Michael, you guys must have went through a couple of rewrites for this before. Obviously, it was the way that you wanted it to. But overall, I think it's perfect. And if I had to ask you guys, we'll go one by one. We'll start with Luke. Do you have a favorite scene in the film? Like when you watch it, like, yeah, this was great and it came out perfect.
Yeah, I do. I obviously the whole movie, I it's my favorite. I love everything about it. But if I had to pick, yeah, if I had to pick a favorite scene, I just love the scene where right before Sally and Angie are going to split up. There's just a really heartfelt moment where Sally wants to go one way, Angie wants to go one way, and Sally ends up giving her shoes because Angie is shoeless at this point. This is in the tunnels. I love that scene. I love how it's acted. I love everything about it. And it's a really special scene because I think it's the moment in the film where we really get to see this really great part of Sally, this character, this, Christian zealot who most people have been annoyed with most of this time, but we really get to see her sort of put her beliefs into action. And I think sort of, it's a really touching scene for me. So I would probably say that's my favorite.
Awesome. How about you, Tim?
It's also a Sally scene where she basically sort of reveals herself, and she tells Kato how she feels, but then she feels really betrayed because she doesn't want that. She said, I didn't want. Do you think I asked for it? I didn't want it, and she acts the shit out of it, and it's so sad. And yeah, I think I'm where Luke is, and I think the hardest part of the movie is to make the character that I don't like those kind of people, and I based this character off someone I did not like, but but the character, has to be someone that we relate to, and that's the moment I think for me that it's like, oh yeah, that's a real person, and the Shayna Kato chemistry we talked about is so evident there. That's everything about it is like, it's like elevated. The most of the movie is kind of schlocky and on purpose because we love schlock, but that's like where that's a little bit elevated scene there, I think.
Yeah, but how about you, Michael?
I kind of have the counter to Tim's, and I can easily pick that one as well. I could pick many. But there's two scenes I think are mirrors of each other. When Tim mentions Shayna or Sally scene, there's the one with Angie where she has her moment where she talks about David, who David is, what their situation, how David has come to her. I don't want to reveal too much, but and I feel like, and this is also kind of mirrors what Luke was saying too, like I feel like that was a great table setter for the movie, even though it comes kind of later and we flirt with these kind of conversations and moments, but like I feel like it's a table setter in the sense of like, we are going back to what I was saying earlier, we're going to buck some cinematic stuff that we see, and we're going to let our characters talk. You're just going to let them have dialogue. That's or not even dialogue. I mean, almost a soliloquy. It's almost as if Shayna's not around. You can almost say that, but like we're just going to let them have these moments where they just talk. And they reveal things about themselves. And we're not going to undercut it with a pun or a joke, which so many movies do. You only have so much, earnestness or heartfulness, then you got to go right to a quip, to like underscore, undermine everything you just did. We're not going to do that. We're just going to let this genuine thing happen. And Sally reacts genuinely about her life, and she understands Angie a little bit better, and it makes her feel bad about herself. And together they're going to share this moment, and then they're going to, move on to the next kind of obstacle, which is inherent in screenwriting and any storytelling. It's one obstacle and one problem after another. We're going to fill the spaces in between with these moments. And I think that moment, not only is Kato, brilliant in it, and she won Best Actress at Panic Fest. And I think you see it in that scene and so many others. But like, it's just a really nice moment that I feel like it speaks to what our attempts, how much success we were able to cultivate. It speaks to the attempts we're at least we're going after in this film.
Yeah, and I can agree. I think that would definitely be my favorite scene too, with with them kind of like revealing themselves and really starting to come together, because I mean that's what the whole movie really is about at the end of the day. I mean it's in the title, and it definitely works towards it, especially all the way till the end. They always start to group. Like, I don't want to say too much. I don't want to spoil anything or say anything that I shouldn't be saying right now because the movie isn't out yet. But yeah, there's a lot of really good dialogue throughout this whole film. And nothing really seems forced, and I appreciate that a lot, because you see that sometimes, especially nowadays, there's a lot of dialogue that seems kind of forced. And with the way that this movie goes, it flows really good. The whole pacing of it is really, really good. The dialogue, really complements that, and how they kind of go through all these steps, and where they end up, and when they start, revealing more things about themselves, and at the end, it kind of gets revealed of like what's going to happen and how they are. It's really, really powerful. And I really do think this is going to be a film that a lot of people are going to, see maybe themselves in, or relate to it even more, and kind of rethink things. Because this movie definitely made me think a little bit about people that I have in my life, and being like, maybe I really should, give them a little bit of a chance and see what's going on. So I really do appreciate everything that everybody who worked on this film, especially you three, for what you did with us, because it's really powerful. And looking at the title and looking at the covers, you might not think that you're gonna like, oh, this is just gonna be like a hack and slash, slashers. What it kind of looks like in a way, just because of the way that the colors are, and everything, and just even the title, because everything's really sharp on it. But it's not. It's very sentimental and really down to earth at the end of the day, and it's all about people coming together to kind of conquer this one thing. So good job on you guys.
Thank you. And I have to sing Tim and Mike's praises, especially following up on that, because I think, just like you said, both of them, and Mike and I have had this conversation many times, but as writers, they're all about saying what this is about. I mean, not being shy. I mean, a lot of artists, especially modern film artists, want to be as subtle as humanly possible. And I actually think I think it's better when you really are open about what you feel, what the characters feel, what the movie is about. I think there's a lot of credit that goes to those two, because that's the hardest thing to do. A lot of people are more subtle because it's hard to be not subtle and not sound forced, like you said. And so, huge props to these guys for being able to do that. I think a lot of that comes from comics, where you don't have, the benefit of subtlety as much. But for them to then take that and put it in a film, and like you said, not have it feel forced or, anything like that, I think that's a huge, massive talent. So
yeah. So yeah,
thank you, man.
Seriously, thank you guys for doing this. And I know you some of you have to run soon, so we'll end this really, really quick. I have one last question. It's kind of a fun one. So we'll start with Luke, and we'll just do what is your favorite horror movie, and we'll just go a round table on that. If you had to pick one that you could watch every day.
Oh boy. If I had to pick one, I would say probably, that's really hard. Yeah, my mood changes so much, but I probably would have to pick Hellraiser.
Wow. I don't hear that one a lot.
That's believe it or not, it's one of the first horror movies I saw when I really started getting in high school. I started getting bold enough to actually watch, modern horror. But I love similar to Revealer, I love single location horror. I love that movie. So much happens in that movie, and it's all in a house.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's almost entirely in a house, and it's just the designs are absolutely incredible. I think the effects are incredible. There's some of my absolute favorite effect scenes ever in any of in all of film happen in that film. Character wise, I just think it's absolutely a masterpiece. It's a perfect film for me.
Yeah, I agree on that. What about you, Tim?
Lost Boys, I think.
Oh, that's another one I don't really hear a lot of. Okay, you guys are pulling some out.
Well, it's super smart. It's super funny. It's sexy. It's weird. It's subversive.
Yeah.
And I think people sometimes forget, because everything that's come after it has obviously influenced it, how much it changes about vampires when that movie's come out. Because they're, like they played it as it's like fun and cool, and these are the punk rock kids, um, and but it's also just like it's a hilarious movie. It has a lot of just real genuine heartfelt shit in it. So yeah, that one is probably overall. It beats out the other one, which sometimes kind of gets close to it, which is Evil Dead 2.
Okay, there you go.
Which is way up there, but yeah, Lost Boys. For now, that's my favorite.
All right, what about you, Michael?
Yeah. So I'm probably gonna have. I'm guessing I'm probably gonna have the most conventional pick, and there's a lot of contenders, but back against the wall, I'm gonna go with James Will Frankenstein, the original sound Frankenstein, rather.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge Universal monster fan. That's my probably my favorite.
I got the Wolfman back here.
I see that. I saw that. It's amazing, man. It's fantastic. But yeah, no, I just, like I said, I love the Universal monster movies. I can talk about those for hours and hours. But Frankenstein is the one. I've watched it since I was a kid, and it stayed with me my whole life. I watch it at least once a year, probably more. And I can't say it more eloquently than Guillermo del Toro when he said, it's the movie that taught him about the monster and the man and the monster.
Yep.
And that's something, I mean, hell, that extends to Revealer, that there is a human in Sally, that there is a darker side to Angie. There's both, and like these really complex ideas of like, I didn't really get it obviously when I was a kid, but the ending of like, Frankenstein throwing the girl in the water. Why? Because nobody taught him anything, because he was learned from her that you throw pretty things into the water, and that's what you do. And it's tragic. And then the way the town reacts, there's so much complexity and nuance, and extends with Bride of Frankenstein, which is equally as brilliant. But I learned every time I watched it, I learned so much. I enjoy it so much, and I learned so much. And I feel like not only out of pure love of it, but it's also like I feel like it's taught me as much about how to handle nuance. I mean, hell, that was 1931, if I'm not mistaken, 1931.
Yeah.
That thing had more complexities than 99% of movies that we get every year in 2022, and it was entertaining as hell. It's just super entertaining. And the creature design, I mean, God, Boris Karloff and Clive, and, like, there's just great cast. There's so many just amazing things that you can just revel in that movie. It's like 62 minutes long.
And that's a good film. All the movies that you guys said are really good. Mine is probably going to line with a lot of other people. Is I love. It's also the first horror movie that I remember seeing is 1978 Halloween, and I have all the Michael masks behind me. And I love slashers. I love them. I love seeing gore and people being blown up and stuff. And it's super fun. So yeah, that's definitely my favorite. But all the ones that you all listed are definitely really good movies to watch. Also, Dracula from back then is one of my favorites as well. Yeah, that was awesome. So I don't think I have any other questions. If you have any last minute things you guys want to say to anybody who's going to be listening to this, or any announcements for things that maybe I didn't touch on that you want to run through, you guys have the floor.
Check out, if you like slasher stuff, check out Hack Slash, my horror comic about slashers. If you like our movie, you should read our comics. We hope you do so.
All right.
Yeah, and watch Revealer, June 23rd.
Yes,
midnight, whatever midnight is for you, 12:01. Go to Shudder, log on, create multiple accounts.
Yes, just
and
have it on
watch
repeat.
it. watch it.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess another thing too, I can ask that I didn't even think of. Last one is because sometimes Shudder does like physical releases of these. Are you guys gonna do any physical media for the movie, or is it gonna be strictly streaming?
No, we are. We will have a Blu-ray release. I don't know when. I don't
Awesome.
know the details of that. We're working it out right now, but yeah, our deal with Shudder does include a physical release. So
I know I'll be picking that up.
oh, yeah. Thank you. Yes, stream and buy is what I will say for sure. We're a small, very very small independent film. We don't have any stars in our film or anything like that. So we just appreciate the support of everyone like yourself.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having us on the show, and
My pleasure.
We're humbled by how much you love the film, and we hope that your listeners and watchers and everyone else in this community also enjoys it. We kind of made it for you. So
yes, definitely do what Luke said: rent and stream and buy, and maybe rent too. Who knows? Maybe you can rent it from a friend.
Just
yeah, that was awesome. So thank you guys for coming on. This was definitely a pleasure. I mean, this is our first first look at a movie ever. So this is a big milestone for us too. So thank you for giving us this opportunity to do that and see this awesome film and tell everybody else about it. And yeah, June 23rd, please watch this. Get your whole family to watch it. If they don't have a Shudder account, make one for them and just put it on their TV. Go and do it and support everything that Luke, Tim, and Michael do. And they're on social media, which I'll put all the links, everything in the description for all these, so everybody can start following you and ask you a bunch of questions.
Awesome.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah. So this was the Barrens Hideout Podcast. I was your host, Dustin, and that was the creative crew of Revealer. So thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time.